Usually when we talk about the concepts of life and death, the script we follow is just incredibly straightforward.
Right. It's a universally understood binary.
Exactly. I mean, birth equates to joy, potential, a big celebration.
Yeah.
And death equates to tragedy, grief, the absolute end of the line.
Yeah, and we just accept this without a second thought because, biologically and culturally, we're literally wired to survive.
It's deeply ingrained. We naturally cling to life and, instinctively push away from death.
Having that clear categorization of good and bad, it provides a sense of grounding in a universe that's otherwise completely chaotic.
But what if that entire script, like our fundamental baseline understanding of human existence, is just completely backward?
Right, that's the big question.
What if the actual tragedy of the human experience isn't mortality, but rather our absolute obsession with staying alive?
There's a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. And that's the philosophical shift we are exploring today. For you listening right now, we are going to do a deep dive into some incredibly thought-provoking and, frankly, very unconventional excerpts from Chapter 26 of a text by Sweffing.
And the title of that text is, There is a Supernatural Soul in the Universe minus 40 Evidence Proving the Existence of the Greatest Creator.
Yeah. But before we get too deep into the mechanics of all this, we should definitely add a quick note for you listening.
Yeah, absolutely. This text touches on some highly complex spiritual, religious, and societal viewpoints.
Right. And our goal here today is not to endorse these views, nor are we taking sides or, telling you how to live your life.
Exactly. We are just acting as your impartial guides here. We're unpacking this really fascinating and intricate framework the author has constructed so you can fully understand the source material.
We're mapping the territory, basically, not telling you to move there.
Perfect way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this because the author starts with a massive counterintuitive jolt right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah. It's jarring.
The text argues that mortals, just everyday people going about their lives, are deeply confused. We celebrate birth, we mourn death, but the author makes this stunning claim, and I quote, "Seeking life entails endless troubles, and seeking death brings infinite benefits."
Which is quite the statement.
I have to push back on this immediately. I mean, on the surface, that just sounds incredibly bleak.
It does. It sounds completely counter to everything we're taught.
Why on earth would a philosophy argue that seeking death brings infinite benefits? I mean, I like my morning coffee. I enjoy breathing. Most people do.
Yeah, it completely upends that survival instinct we just talked about. But the author doesn't just leave it as this dark, empty platitude. There's a specific mechanism and a thought experiment used to explain the logic.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the author asks us to imagine what the world would actually look like if no plants or animals ever died.
Wait, like ever?
Ever. Imagine if your great-great-great-grandparents were still alive today, hanging out in your living room. Imagine if every single family across the entire span of human history just kept growing, reproducing, consuming, without anyone ever passing away.
Oh, wow. The physical reality of that would be a complete nightmare.
Right.
The overcrowding, the absolute depletion of natural resources.
Yeah.
That we would literally be standing on top of each other, fighting for like a single drop of water.
Precisely. And the author uses this to challenge the reader to really think about who we are and who they are in a scenario where every single biological entity survives forever.
Because there wouldn't be enough room for everyone.
Exactly. If everyone wishes to live forever, who ultimately gets to survive when the space inevitably runs out, it creates this paradox where the pursuit of life inherently generates conflict and misery.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The text argues that life, as we currently experience it in this physical realm, is fundamentally a sea of suffering.
A sea of suffering. That's a strong phrase.
And death, in this specific framework, and the author specifically connects this to the concept of reaching nirvana well, death is not a tragic, mournful end. It's the ultimate necessary release from a biological trap.
Okay, that reframes the entire concept for me. It isn't about glorifying the end of existence. It's about recognizing the inherent friction of the physical world.
Exactly.
But, if life is a sea of suffering, what exactly makes it so unbearable on a day-to-day level, like beyond just the overpopulation thought experiment?
Well, the author provides a scathing, highly detailed critique of modern societal norms. It unpacks exactly how we manufacture our own suffering.
Yeah, the text looks at human history and specifically uses modern Chinese society as a microcosm.
Right. To demonstrate that very few people actually live what we would call a good life. The suffering isn't just about physical survival. It's the psychological and spiritual crushing of the individual by societal expectations.
And the examples are intensely specific. I mean, the pressure doesn't just start when you're old enough to get a job. It starts before you're even born.
Oh, yeah, the antenatal training.
Yes. The author points to antenatal training, where instead of letting a fetus simply exist and experience the natural ambient music of the universe, parents are already, inoculating them with what the author calls imperfect music.
Just desperately trying to give their unborn child some sort of intellectual edge.
Exactly. It's a manifestation of pure anxiety.
And it only accelerates in childhood. The text points out how kids are systematically denied a genuine connection with nature.
Yeah, they aren't allowed the time or freedom to just interact with flowers or bugs or birds.
No. Instead, they're pacified with plastic toys and cartoons and immediately thrust into this rigid system of preschool education. Their time is completely monopolized by forced piano lessons, painting classes.
Kung fu, dancing, all of it. It honestly feels like society straps us onto this endless high-speed treadmill before we even learn how to walk.
A treadmill is a great way to put it.
And the worst part is, we're racing toward a finish line that doesn't actually exist. The text notes how kids are constantly bombarded with lectures. You have to get full marks. Look at Xiaoming. She's so diligent. You must learn from her.
That treadmill analogy captures the essence of the critique perfectly because the speed only ever increases. The author describes middle school as a 100-meter dash where the innate splendor of human nature is just swallowed up.
Swallowed up by constant supervision and relentless exams.
Yeah. But the critique of the university system is where the text gets particularly pointed about why this whole setup is a sea of suffering.
Right, because culturally, we are taught that getting into an elite university is the grand prize. You survive the childhood treadmill, you beat the exams, you won.
But according to the author's framework, you haven't won anything. You've just graduated to a more sophisticated trap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, universities are theoretically supposed to cultivate people with noble moral characters and deep inner lives. But the author argues they function as factories that create robots who have lost themselves.
Robots who have lost themselves.
Yeah, students are subjected to forced indoctrination. It's a blind pursuit of technical knowledge that strips away their spiritual core. It essentially just teaches them how to effectively chase money, status, and material comfort.
And the text drives this home with some pretty devastating anecdotes. The author talks about chatting with neighbors who are wealthy businessmen.
The ones who, quote-unquote, won.
Exactly. These are people with the massive houses, the luxury cars, the servants. By all societal metrics, they won the treadmill race. But internally, they are miserable.
Yeah, one neighbor actually mocks the author for writing a book, basically saying, you are everything if you have money, and you are nothing if you don't.
Which is followed by an even more revealing quote from another neighbor who says, nowadays, money is God. How much is conscience worth?
How much is conscience worth? It's chilling.
It really is a chilling line. And it perfectly encapsulates why the author views this modern human world as a realm ruled by goblins, devils, and monsters.
Because everyone looks incredibly elegant on the outside, wearing the right clothes, driving the right cars.
But inside, they are spiritually emaciated. They are completely fatigued from chasing pennies and validating their existence through wealth.
And that internal fatigue is the core of the sea of suffering. The author argues that humanity is sprinting in the wrong direction, and the only way to escape the misery is by turning back.
Turning back. Which circles back to that initial quote about seeking death, right?
Exactly. It means letting go of the material treadmill, achieving nirvana through rigorous self-improvement, and elevating your consciousness above the physical realm entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If this material world is just a miserable, exhausting treadmill driven by money and forced indoctrination, what is the actual alternative?
Right? Where do we go?
Yeah, where is human consciousness trying to go when we turn back? And the text introduces this grand concept of the Elysium world.
Yes. The Elysium world is presented as the ultimate destination. It's described as a realm of no birth, no death. It's a complete escape from the biological friction and societal traps we just discussed.
And the text gets incredibly specific about the architecture of the universe to explain this. It claims the Elysium world is just one of 36 dimensional spaces that exist.
36, yeah.
And it argues this is the exact same higher realm described throughout history by spiritual sages like Jesus and Sakyamuni.
There's also this highly creative detail in the text regarding mirages, which I love.
Oh, yes. Tell them about the mirages.
So the author claims that when we see a mirage here on Earth, we aren't just seeing a simple optical illusion caused by atmospheric heat and light refraction. We're actually catching a literal, fleeting glimpse into the Elysium world bleeding into our dimension.
It's certainly a fascinating reinterpretation of a natural, physical phenomenon to fit a spiritual cosmology.
It really is.
But, I mean, I have to voice some skepticism here on behalf of our listener. If there are 36-dimensional spaces and an Elysium world of no birth and no death is quite literally overlapping with ours, why can't we see it?
That's the logical next question.
Yeah, if it's real, why are we limited to these supposed mirage glitches? Why isn't it just obvious?
What's fascinating here is how the author actually anticipates and addresses that exact listener skepticism. The text argues that we do possess the necessary equipment to perceive these dimensions through the concept of the spiritual sense.
The spiritual sense, okay.
Yeah, the author asserts that beyond our standard physical sense organs, vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, we possess a sixth sense organ, which is the mind. And the mind governs our spiritual sense.
So the hardware to perceive the Elysium world is built into us.
According to the text, yes. The hardware is there, but the lens is incredibly dull.
Why?
Because it's been systematically polluted.
Let me guess, polluted by the high-speed treadmill.
Exactly that. It is polluted by the values of human society, our ingrained prejudices, our obsession with money, and the forced indoctrination from our education.
So our spiritual sense is clouded by the material world.
Right. To clean this lens, the author says we have to actively awaken to the truth by getting to the ultimate essence of every single phenomenon we encounter.
And the text notes that Buddhism calls the methods for doing this the 84,000 Dharma Pariahs.
Yeah, and we shouldn't gloss over that term because the mechanism of how this works is central to the argument.
It basically means there are unlimited ways to grasp a phenomenon and strip away its surface illusion, right?
Exactly. So if you look at a luxury car, which is, the ultimate symbol of winning the societal treadmill, the Dharma Pariahs would have you strip away the illusion.
You realize it's just metal, plastic, and glass.
Then you strip that away, realizing it's just a social agreement of value. You keep digging, finding the essence of the essence, until you realize the car, the status, the money, it's all transient.
If you do this with everything, you eventually reach the ultimate, unchanging substrate of reality.
And the author identifies that ultimate, unchanging substrate as the greatest creator. By stripping away the material illusions, you clean your spiritual sense, which then allows you to perceive realms like the Elysium world.
Okay, but to accept this multidimensional Elysium world and this polluted sixth spiritual sense, you essentially have to accept that our standard modern way of measuring reality, which is science, is fundamentally flawed, or at least incomplete.
Yes.
And that leads directly into the author's critique of science and sets the stage for the theories on reincarnation.
Right, because their author is fully aware that a modern reader will demand empirical evidence. The text anticipates the reaction like, this is inscrutable, science can't prove any of this.
So what's the author's response?
The response is to argue that science is inherently limited by its own parameters. Science, in this view, is pure materialism. It can only measure, weigh, and prove half of the universe, the material half.
And it's completely blind to the non-material spiritual half.
Exactly.
The author uses an interesting rhetorical device here to highlight this limitation. The text poses a series of questions about human consciousness itself. It asks, take my consciousness, for example. How big is it? What color is it? How heavy is it? What shape does it have?
It's a clever way to point out the obvious.
Yeah, that the most fundamental, undeniable aspect of human existence, our own internal awareness and ability to think, cannot be put on a scale. It can't be measured with a ruler or observed under a microscope.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, establishing this limitation of material science is absolutely crucial for the author to introduce the next major concept, which is the transmigration of life.
Ah, right.
Because science only tracks the physical body, it views death as an absolute end. But the author explicitly states that death is merely a surface phenomenon.
It's a transit hub, not the final destination.
Precisely. Behind the illusion of physical death is an incredibly complex, ongoing system of reincarnation. Based on the refinement of your consciousness, like how clean your spiritual sense is, you don't just disappear.
You might return to the human world to try again.
You might degrade and become an animal. Or you might elevate and enter higher planes, which the text refers to as the 1,000-year world or the 10,000-year world.
And those are described as higher dimensional spaces where suffering is drastically reduced, though not entirely eliminated.
Right. Only a very refined, elite number of consciousnesses go straight to the ultimate destination, which is the Elysium world.
So if science can't weigh or measure consciousness, how does the author attempt to prove this massive cycle of past lives and different dimensional worlds actually exists?
The text layers a few different types of quote-unquote proof. The first three are broader and rely on synthesizing existing human knowledge. The author points to the sheer volume of historical records regarding reincarnation found across drastically different isolated cultures.
Okay.
Then, the text cites documented phenomena from institutions like the International Near-Death Research Institute. And finally, there's the consistency of the descriptions of these higher realms provided by various sages throughout history.
But the author clearly knows that skeptics will write those off as myths, or confirmation bias, or religious dogmas.
Sure.
So the text introduces some highly unique arguments that attempt to use observable, everyday biological behaviors as proof of a non-physical consciousness carrying over from a past life.
Yes, and as we impartially map out this framework, we have to look at how the author uniquely attempts to bridge biology and spirituality here. One of the most distinct arguments made in the text revolves around the existence of homosexuality.
Right. The author asks a foundational question. If the strict biological rule of the physical realm is that opposite sexes attract in order to reproduce, why does homosexuality exist so persistently, and why is the bond so profound that people will risk their lives for it?
And the author's answer bypasses modern genetics or psychology entirely. The text claims that homosexuality is a spontaneous instinct caused by what the author terms the inertia of biology.
Let's clarify the mechanism they're proposing here.
The argument is that if a consciousness inhabited the physical form of a man in a previous life, it absorbed the behavioral and biological inertia of that physical state.
Okay.
So when that same consciousness reincarnates and is dropped into the physical body of a woman in the current life, the software from the previous life is still running.
Got it.
She will instinctively be drawn to women because the deep-seated nature of her previous physical existence transferred over via her non-physical consciousness. The text explicitly states this is not a morbidity or an illness, but a natural, spontaneous instinct rooted purely in the biological inertia of a past incarnation.
It is a fascinating attempt to map observable human behavior onto a metaphysical framework of reincarnation. And the author applies this exact same logic of biological inertia to explain deep-seated human habits, right?
It does.
The text leans heavily on the old proverb, it's hard to alter a man's nature.
Yeah, the author challenges the reader to pinpoint when a person's core nature or personality actually forms. Is it during primary school? Is it in the womb? Is it at the exact moment of conception?
And the argument is that if our nature formed during any of those physical stages, it wouldn't be so incredibly difficult to alter through willpower or therapy.
The conclusion the text draws is that when humans exhibit deeply ingrained habits, especially when those behaviors closely mirror the base instincts of certain animals, it's literal proof that their internal nature has been solidifying for centuries across multiple lifetimes.
So if a person operates with the deeply rooted instinctual nature of a specific animal, the author argues it's because their consciousness literally inhabited that animal in a past life. The physical hardware changes, but the behavioral software carries over.
That is the core mechanism of the author's proof. The persistence of habit is the footprint of a past life.
Which honestly brings up a massive existential crisis.
Okay.
If I am constantly reincarnating, carrying old biological inertia from past lives as different genders, or dragging along instincts from when I was an animal, bouncing endlessly between the human world and the thousand-year world, then who is the real me experiencing all of this?
Where is the baseline identity?
Yes, where is it?
That is the ultimate philosophical riddle, isn't it? When you strip away all the transient elements, who am I?
And to answer this, the text walks through an amazing elimination exercise that strips away our physical and social anchors step by step. The author asks, am I my family? No, because I still exist as an individual entity without them.
Am I my clothes? No, my internal identity doesn't vanish when I undress.
The author then moves to the biological level. Am I my teeth, my hair, my eyes?
No, because if you lose them in an accident, your core sense of self remains completely intact.
The text pushes it to the absolute limit. Am I my legs? Am I my heart? Am I my blood? Think about it, even after a major amputation, a heart transplant, or a full blood transfusion, the internal observer, the core of I, remains untouched.
It's true.
To put an analogy to it, it's like comparing the human body to a rental car.
Yeah.
When you rent a sedan at the airport, you know you aren't the sedan. If a tire blows out or the engine dies, it's a huge inconvenience. But your internal identity as the driver doesn't fundamentally change. You are just operating the machinery.
That aligns perfectly with the highly specific metaphor the author uses in the text. The author compares living in the flesh to borrowing a boat to cross a treacherous river.
Oh, I like that.
You absolutely need the boat to navigate the dangerous water, but once you reach the opposite shore, you don't pick the heavy wooden boat up and carry it on your back for the rest of your journey. You abandon the boat and walk onto the land.
So if I am none of these biological components, if I'm just the driver of the rental car or the passenger in the borrowed boat, who on earth am I?
This raises an important question, and it really is the climax of the author's entire philosophical framework. The text answers the who am I question with a single specific term.
Okay.
Tathagata.
Tathagata.
Yes.
Yeah.
The author defines Tathagata as the essential origin. It is the pure consciousness, or the soul, that exists completely independent of physical matter.
So my current physical body is...
Nothing more than a temporary home where this consciousness currently resides, enduring the friction and hardships of the human world. When the flesh inevitably dies, the Tathagata simply leaves the borrowed boat and finds another home based on its level of refinement.
And the text claims that deeply realizing this, truly perceiving your own nature as this essential, enduring Tathagata rather than a physical body, is the key to everything. The author quotes a Buddhist concept: an enlightened heart is perceptive of nature, which is perceptive of Buddha.
The mechanism of enlightenment here is internalization. If you truly internalize that you are the eternal passenger and not the rotting boat, you bypass the entire exhausting cycle of reincarnation.
Wow.
You stop carrying the biological inertia from animal to human and back again, and your consciousness elevates straight to the Elysium world.
You completely escape the sea of suffering. So what does this all mean for you listening today? If we pull all these intricate threads together, the author takes all of our mundane, everyday, crushing anxieties, the relentless pressure to get good grades, the exhaustion of the corporate treadmill, the desperation to accumulate wealth, the societal indoctrination,
All of it.
and completely recasts them. They aren't just the random cruelties of a chaotic, uncaring universe. They are the intentional friction of the sea of suffering. It is a purposefully designed maze.
And the ultimate goal of human existence, according to the framework we've explored today, is not to win the rat race. The goal is not to accumulate the most wealth or secure the highest status or build the biggest house.
Right.
The goal is to use the Dharma pariahs to see through the illusion of the material maze, to refine your spiritual sense, and to wake up to the reality that you are simply Tathagata crossing a river.
You just have to be willing to abandon the borrowed boat when the time comes. It is a wildly different paradigm-shifting lens through which to view your Monday morning commute.
It really changes the stakes of everyday life.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought. Something that builds on the text but pushes just a little bit further into the unknown for you to ponder on your own.
Let's hear it.
The author explicitly states throughout the text that this entire complex phenomenon of life, death, and multiple dimensions is determined by the greatest creator, and that this cycle has a very specific purpose and meaning. Without this creator, there would be no life and no cycle of suffering.
Right, that's the foundation.
But if the ultimate, highest goal of human existence is to wake up, realize this physical world is a painful illusion, and escape to an Elysium world of no birth, no death, why did this super wisdom design the painful, exhausting maze of the human world in the first place?
Oh, that is the ultimate paradox of this cosmology.
Right. If the whole point of the journey is just to get out of the river, what does the greatest creator actually get out of watching us struggle to cross it? Why put the Tathagata in the borrowed boat to begin with?
That is a mechanical and philosophical question that could take a lifetime, or perhaps, according to the author, several lifetimes to fully answer.
And that is a perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the reality around you, keep looking for the true essence beneath the surface, and we will catch you next time.